For everybody that is with us now, we're going to have an open conversation. Let's discuss Don't Say Gay. It was one of the principal pieces from this legislative session. The vague law bans discussion from K to third grade for simple things like, I have two mommies. But you can't talk about that now. But it's okay to talk about mommy and daddy. Seems like a contradiction. Then the state gets to decide for all other grades and schools what is appropriate in discussion of gender and sexual identity. And that is a key piece that is being missed in conversation about this dangerous new law. It's called a slippery slope. And this morning, Raven Symone had an amazing demonstration at her television show and a walk-off by saying it was all about fairness. So she said, don't say straight. Watch what happened.
Governor Desantis signed what some call the Don't Say Gay law. And Raven Symone and her fellow castmates decided to walk out.
Yeah.
You walked out there. You've since returned to work. But why was it so important for you and your castmates to do that?
Well, I am a part of the LGBTQ plus community. We have a lot of diversity on our set as well. And I'm going to say this, and this is my thing. If there's a Don't Say Gay bill, there should be a Don't Say Straight bill, because it's not fair. And there are multiple kinds of humans in this world, and you are ruining the psyche, the confidence of so many young children because you are discrediting their parents, the people they love, the people that raise them, the people that teach them the manners when they walk into that schoolroom. So if you're not going to honor their family, your family shouldn't be honored either. So let's just make it even/equal, maybe.
We should point out we did reach out to the Walt Disney Company for comment. Haven't heard back, but after the bill was signed into law Monday, the company did release a statement, as you know, and that statement does read in part. We put it on our screen here. Our goal as a company is for this law to be repealed by the legislature or struck down in the courts, and we remain committed to supporting the national and state organizations working to achieve that.
Well, there it is, the signature piece in this 63-day legislative session, Don't Say Gay. Open participation for everyone. We'll just be polite with each other, as we all have probably lots to say. Where are we on Don't Say Gay now?
I love Raven Symone. I love her, and she's just an incredible activist. She's a great actor. I've been watching her since I was a kid, and just watching her say what we all know in our community. She hit the nail right on the head. Like straight people will say, oh, why don't we have a straight pride? Because straight pride is every day. That's why we don't have a straight pride. So I loved her comments. I think they were just spot on.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now with the cultural wars that's happening across the country, I think Representative Carlos Guillermo-Smith said this on the news not too long ago, is that the Republicans know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what the trigger points are right now, because they are trying to use tactics that have been used in other states and figure, you know what, if it worked there, it could work here. And Governor Desantis is extremely clear on this national agenda in which he has touted, not just in the state of Florida, but also across the country, of what he wanted to do, not just with Stop the Woke, but right here. And this wasn't the first year it started. It actually started last year with the Trans and Athletic Sports bill. And this is a continuation of that. And I'll end with this, that the Republicans said the quiet part out loud behind the scenes and why they were doing this. When we were trying to do the amendment, it was told to us that the bill sponsor of the abortion bill, who was Senator, I can't even think of her name right now, but the senator who put forth that bill, she made it clear that her goal was to begin to eliminate the transgender conversations that's happening in communities and in schools, and so they knew exactly what they're doing. Starja. Senator Starja.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other observations about where we are?
Well, I'll just, Representative Rayner, you go first.
Okay, no, well, thank you, Rep. I would say, listen, I think where we're at is just, it's a huge inflection point. I think all of us on this panel who are elected are running for some type of reelection or elected or running for new office. And, I had someone ask my team, I love Rep Rainer. She's amazing, but why does she always talk about the gay stuff? And I think, when I really begin to think about that question, and I've been saying this, people want me to talk about the kitchen table issues, such as the housing crisis that we're in, the homeowners insurance crisis that we're in, the environmental health crisis that we're in. But we're starting at a premise with a governor and a Republican legislature that says that LGBTQ lives don't matter, that Black lives don't matter. So I can't get you to care about housing and to want to make sure that I and other folks in our community have affordable and safe housing if the premise is that my life doesn't matter. If the premise is how I show up, how my family is constructed, how I live my life, I don't matter. Because if I don't matter, you don't care if I have safe housing. If I don't matter, you don't care that there are food deserts in my neighborhood. If I don't matter, you don't care that there are significant pollution issues in our communities. So really, we are seeing literally on display in government in a very audacious way that our leaders, the elected leaders of the governor of 22 million people in the state of Florida, he's literally saying LGBTQ lives don't matter, women's lives don't matter, Black folks' lives don't matter. The only lives that matter are if you love like him, look like him, think like him, and have the financial wherewithal that he does.
Representative Rainer, I want to follow up to your observation loud and clear. We said at the top of the show, sometimes I get the knock that in the LGBTQ community, I'm the privileged older white guy. And I accept that label proudly and then say, okay, but this is how we break the stereotypes that reflect that. To the challenge that you just said in terms of older white men in Florida and other places that don't respect the lives that matter of LGBT and of color, how do we expand the base of having more people hear that observation and join us to say, well, they absolutely do matter? How do we accomplish that? What's your suggestion of what we should be saying and doing?
I mean, I think that when we think about how to accomplish that, first off, I want to kind of talk to folks who are of our community, who want to do better, who want to actually change things. Here's the deal. We have to move from being allies to accomplices. Allies are, folks that will put, something on Twitter, they'll put something on social media, but accomplices are people that will have some skin in the game. Whether you're having conversations at your dinner table, whether you are marching with us, whether you are using your privilege, whatever that may look like, to actually further equity and equality. And one of the things that I have noticed, and I'm going to be honest, we're all family. Angie is a straight ally, so she's our cousin, but I'm going to even talk about even in our own community, how there is specifically with, we have to deal with our own stuff with racism and bias in our own LGBTQ community. We see it with, when it comes to people of color who are in our community. I've heard, folks who are gay men say horrendous things about trans people. So we got to start in our house as well. And we got to make sure that we are doing the work in our house. And then we also have to make sure that we're not just fighting for one person, but we're fighting for all of us in the LGBTQ community and making sure that whatever privilege we may have in this community, that we're using that privilege to make sure all of our siblings are taken care of and protected.
Yeah, don't throw rocks at glass houses, and that starts in our own glass house. Loud and clear, you are heard. And Representative Guillermo Smith, your thoughts about Don't Say Gay and what we've seen in this legislative session?
My goodness, Al, where do I start? First of all, thank you for having me on, and it's really awesome to be on here with this power panel, especially with champions from the legislature as well, and one of our not allies but accomplices, Angie Nixon. So again, where to begin with Don't Say Gay? So let's just contextualize this. So when Desantis signed this bill into law this week, he made Florida the first state in 20 years to pass a law that attempts to censor the LGBTQ community in our schools. Why is it the first time in more than 20 years, or in about 20 years? It's because we have seen a lot of progress over these last couple of decades. So what is it that we're seeing now? What we're seeing now is we're seeing a retrogression of that progress, and we are seeing cynical politicians like Governor Ron DeSantis and others. But to be fair, this was not his original idea. This was the original idea of Republican lawmakers in the legislature, which he exploited before he used LGBTQ children as pawns. But he also made other children pawns as well, who were a part of his press conference earlier this week. And most of those children had no idea what they were participating. Well, none of them knew anything about what they were participating in. And I'd be curious to see what those conversations sounds like when they become adults with their parents. Why was I put in this place, used as a pawn by the governor of our state to sign this hateful bill? But the reality is that it's not just this regular attack on LGBTQ people. We lived through the Trump years. This is what Stephen was saying earlier. There's a bit of fatigue with the constant attacks against our community that you can be numb to it. What we're seeing is they are reviving the oldest anti-LGBTQ tropes that exist. The governor started the press conference to sign the Don't Say Gay bill into law with a sign and a poster that said, "Protect children." This is the same messaging. This is the same hurtful, dangerous message that was used by Anita Bryant to try to repeal the Human Rights Ordinance in Miami-Dade County, which she said was actually going to put our children in danger, because if we enact protections for LGBTQ people in the workplace, that means that gay teachers are going to get close to our children, and we must protect our children. This is the same dangerous rhetoric that is now, they're trying to normalize it. We used to be called groomers by the darkest places on the internet, by the anonymous trolls who basically would come out of nowhere. You would hear these comments every so often. Then it started being associated with QAnon, and we're like, well, these people are obviously unhinged. We must, you can't really put too much credence into what they're saying. Now, after the governor's press secretary and his office has launched these attacks saying that it's not the Don't Say Gay bill, it's actually the anti-groomer bill. And if you don't agree with us, you're either an enabler of pedophiles and groomers, or you yourself are a groomer or a pedophile. Al, every single morning I wake up, and I am very sure that many folks who are on this panel have the same experience. It does not matter what I post about on social media. It can be something totally unrelated, and I am bombarded with baseless accusations of pedophilia that, by the way, are borderline libelous. They are smearing the entire LGBTQ community. And yes, did they characterize all opponents of the Don't Say Gay bill as groomers or enablers of pedophilia? Yes, but they have been particularly intent on making sure that those LGBTQ individuals and lawmakers who are opposed are basically characterized and smeared as groomers themselves, which is very dangerous, and it is something that often takes the form of violence against our community, because people believe these tropes and they're being promoted on the daily. And it's just the perfect example of how the text of the bill was bad enough. The prohibition on the inclusion of LGBTQ people in the classroom was bad enough. But now we have seen, before the bill was even signed into law, Al, that the Don't Say Gay bill has been used as a vehicle to push even more homophobia and transphobia in a way that's dangerous.
Yeah, and to provide some echo, Representative Guillermo Smith, of what you just said, I invite our audience. This week, there is an incredible op-ed in the Washington Post. And in the op-ed in the Washington Post, it discusses the history of racism and LGBT homophobia in the state of Florida over the last 70 years, since the 1950s, and comes to the conclusion of showing example after example of, in the name of protecting, of parental rights, in protecting our children from pedophiles, how we have come repeatedly to these same conclusions. And unfortunately for the trolls that fight Queer News Tonight, we happen to believe in science and history. So we come back to the facts over and over. I invite everybody to watch or to read that op-ed in the Washington Post, which was written, by the way, by anchor Dr. Julio Capo and some senator down in South Florida, Senator Chevron Jones, I believe was his name. I'm not quite sure. Make sure you read it, because it is quite an interesting read to support what Representative Guillermo Smith just said. And
I read it, Senator. Good job.
I want to come to Representative Angie Smith, or I'm sorry, Angie Nixon, for a moment. In talking about what's happening with Don't Say Gay, you have a very unique perspective, because you can't be labeled with the troll attack that Representative Guillermo Smith just provided, because you are a straight ally in the State House. What's your assessment of what we're watching over Don't Say Gay? Oh, Angie, I think we have you in mute, perhaps?
Yeah. Louder?
Can you hear me?
Ah, yes, and a little more sound, and I think we're all set. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, it's an honor and a pleasure to be on this great panel. Thank you for having me. My assessment of what's happening is we have a politically ambitious governor who simply wants to be the next president of the United States, and he is attacking communities that he feels stand in the way of potentially becoming president. I'm very disgusted and disturbed by what he's doing right now. And as a Black woman, how could I sit around and be quiet when my friends, which are members of the LGBTQ community, are being attacked, especially knowing what my ancestors had to go through, what my grandmother and my mom had to go through regarding civil rights. And so I wanted to stand and not just be an ally, but to be an accomplished. And similar to what Rep. Rayner stated earlier, having to really push back in my community. You know, Black people oftentimes come from Christian, down home, especially in Florida, down home, Southern Christian Bible Belt, evangelistic holiness type stuff. And so even my father, and I told these folks in a text message, even my father pushed back and kind of disowned me for standing out and speaking in support of members of the LGBT community. But first of all, who am I to judge? And I damn sure, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss, but I'm damn sure gonna stand up and love them, because, you know, they've been here with us in our struggles, and I want to be here for them as well.
We have, you'll notice, a lot of diversity sitting in this panel, this dream team that we're assessing the Florida session. And in addition to Don't Say Gay, another major piece of legislation has gone through. The governor, I do not believe, has signed it yet, but has cleared both the House and the Senate. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ